All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the brain injury discussion. This is your host, Jay. Today, we're going to talk about adaptive equipment for brain injury survivors. Some of this equipment might not necessarily be just strictly for brain injury survivors. Sometimes it goes for other kinds of medical conditions, but I think we should explore it nonetheless. It should be something that a case manager should be able to at least know and talk about, especially when it comes to clients and their adaptive equipment. So, with that being said, like always, sources will be in the description below. I'd appreciate if you like and subscribe and maybe leave a comment down below. But with that being said, let's get into this. We got a lot to cover. First, we need to talk about mobility. See, these are some of the most common aids that really we can help not just add to people, but also equip people with. And they range from something as simple as a cane, which is literally a walking stick, right? But a cane will help someone walk, especially if they have stability issues. Same thing with walkers and maybe crutches. Maybe they gotta, can't put weight on one leg. A crutch might be a useful thing in that sort of situation. Or maybe they can't walk at all. And so they require wheelchairs. And again, when we talk about these kind of things, we're talking about things that are um, customizable and they fit to the person. So something simple as these crutches can adjust for someone's height. Um, but generally speaking, when you have a adaptive aid, and again, this is going to be the theme of the whole video, basically, is that we're looking for things that improve the quality of life, increases independence. This equipment is generally safe and effective and is usually meant to last, or it's durable, it's strong, it'll last. So you wouldn't want to use a cane that would shatter in a million pieces if it accidentally dropped from ground, basically from standing to falling. So, um, but what we see here are plenty of examples of very practical mobility aids, which again, someone who uses a cane might be able to walk longer. Someone who uses rollators might be able to sit down and take a break and also be able to walk longer than without it. Or maybe they're able to hold themselves up with with a pair of crutches or a walker or even canes. But really, it's comes down to wheelchairs too. All of these things move someone from being strictly bedbound into a higher quality of life and a higher level of independence and thus making just making their life so much better. So as a case manager, we should be aware of these things. But let's continue. Let's talk about communication. Some of the more common ones are low tech options like pen and paper, type to text, and voice commands. Obviously, voice commands might be a technological thing, but it's actually fairly simple. But we also see that pen and paper is effective. Again, write out an idea, write down a question, write down an answer, or point to yes or no. Those things are effective. There are also high-tech solutions like eye tracking. Again, they track the eyes when it looks from one place to another, and it'll basically map out a word or a set of words into a sentence. Augmented communication devices, again, this can be, as an example here on this tablet, there are already preset words, and all you have to do is press the button and it'll show. But another high-tech device that maybe goes unrecognized or under-recognized is the use of hearing aids. Again, having been in the military, having known a bunch of guys in the military, I've met younger folks who've had hearing aids or have had hearing issues or tinnitus. Uh, but the ability to communicate isn't just necessarily about vocalization or, dealing with verbal aphasia, but it is more of not only communicating outwards, but receiving information via the ears. And so hearing aids are also important. So if I'm working with a client, maybe I should take note that they have hearing aids, make sure that they have spare batteries, make sure that they fit and work properly. Those are things to consider. Just keep those in mind. Also, this allows for communications between individuals, again, give and take, input and output. And we want that verbal input and output. And again, this is also another measure for quality of life. Someone's able to voice a concern, they are able to ask a question, they're able to answer a question or give it or, bring something to light. That is a huge part of quality of life. And so that's why knowing these things are important. And we don't forget hearing aids. But with that being said, let's continue. Let's move on into cognitive aids. Now, there are low-tech solutions. Now, again, these low-tech solutions are very common. You can probably find them at any either gas station or drugstore. A paper calendar or an agenda, a day-by-day agenda or a planner. These things are actually super helpful to people, especially if they have brain injury. They get to write things down, they get to put things on their schedule. And this can even be as simple as a sticky note reminder. Put a sticky note on the mirror before before you go and into the shower. Make sure that you brush your teeth or something. That seems simple, but it's a quick little reminder. Also, a low-tech cognitive aid, technically, it's a pill organizer. That way, you're not having to deal with the multiple bottles, the multiple quantities. You don't have to do the math. You sit down and you put the pills where they need to go, depending on how many times a day you take it. Pill organizers are very useful, especially for brain injury survivors, and they help keep things in order. That way, you're not duplicating or you're not missing doses of medication. And so keep that in mind. A pill organizer, it's low tech. It's literally just sections with pills in it. And so we should think about that. Let's consider that. Let's keep that going. And so very simple but highly effective cognitive aids. But there's also high-tech aids, for example, cell phone apps that come with electronic reminders, calendars, again, Google calendars that can be linked to your computer and your email. And you can have virtual assistants as well. Think about AI. AI can come in, and sometimes there's probably an app for everything, including apps to remind you: Have you taken your pill today? Have you uh, did you take your pill today? Or maybe gentle reminders or something that can help uh, be that cognitive aid or be that reminder, just like we see in this graphic here. This is a reminder. Drink some water. Again, I probably forget to drink water throughout the day if I didn't get thirsty. And so it's important to be reminded, even if you're not a brain injury survivor, but especially if you're a brain injury survivor, is that you want to be healthy. You want to make sure that you're doing all the right things. And sometimes a little reminder is a great help. And again, this is another way to improve the quality of life, especially someone's daily life. That way they don't mix up their schedules, they don't miss appointments. That way they don't double dose or even triple dose or no dose their medications with a pill organizer. But it also lessens the load on caregivers. A caregiver can pull up the calendar and immediately see what's going on for the day. Hey, I've got an appointment with this doctor. I've got to, group at the library I got to go to. Having that down on the calendar is very useful, not just for the person with the brain injury, but also maybe the caretaker, maybe the transportation, maybe the case manager. And so these are things that we should consider and think about. But with that being said, there's even more. So let's talk about transportation aids. Now, this graphic that you see on the right side of the screen here, that's more of an extreme example, shall we say, um, but a very applicable example. Uh, Physical aids, think about it. We got hand controls. Maybe you have some problems with your feet. Maybe you had a spinal cord injury along with that brain injury, and maybe you can't use your feet. Maybe their hand controls, like this right here, makes a lot of sense. And so, for someone who does not have the use of their feet, I don't think they're going to be able to reach those pedals or use them. So, hand controls make sense. Comfort options. When we're working with people with brain injury, there might be comfort options to consider. For example, if I know that someone gets cold because their hypothalamus got injured, or maybe conversely, maybe they get hot really quickly. So, with that being said in mind, maybe a heating steering wheel or heated seat might be an important comfort measure for that person. And so, this would enable them to use their car, maybe remote start, so that way they can warm it up. Maybe they can't turn a key, so maybe remote start is good, or push button start. Think about the features that would be important. Maybe not necessarily vital, but maybe they would be vital. Also, think about wheelchair accessibility. This is another tie in with mobility aids because if someone is bound to a wheelchair, they will need a specialized van that can carry them in their wheelchair safely. Now, I'm pretty sure that there are equipment and lifts and everything that go along with that, and I'm sure there's a big market for it out there. And I'm pretty sure there are some some expensive options and some lesser expensive options, but you need to think about safety because I understand that you can throw more of an extreme example. I'm pretty sure that yes, a wheelchair can be thrown into the bed of a pickup truck, but who's to say it won't get damaged? Who's to say that the person is going to be uncomfortable? And so we need to think about the physical aids and physical adaptations that we can do to vehicles to make them safe and effective. But talking about safety, let's talk about safety aids, especially for people who've had their vision affected by brain injury, or maybe their reaction time is affected by brain injury. Think about maybe lane corrective or, lane warnings like, hey, you're getting a little bit too close to the center line. It'll automatically correct. Brake warnings, that's another one where maybe someone does not have a very, wide or deep field of vision. And so maybe they're still able to drive, just, not on the highway. And so having these brake warnings or maybe something like automatic braking might be useful or might be something to consider in these cases. Blind spot lights, again, be a little light on your mirror there, but it would make sense to have these things, especially if their field of vision is limited, or maybe their left eye was affected and they can't see that blind spot that's right there. Maybe they're, it's just a good tool overall. I would suggest people look into it or at least give it a try. It might prevent an accident. And again, these things are meant for safety. A lot of them are optional, but maybe we should consider them. Technology aids. Obviously, most newer vehicles will come with Bluetooth. So, with that type of communication, you can receive and send calls hands-free. GPS that's been around a little bit longer. It's pretty much practically in everyone's phone. But knowing where you're going, especially for someone who knows, maybe their brain injury made them forgetful, or maybe their brain injury, maybe they can't remember where it is. And so typing it into the GPS and being ready to go is a great little solution there. And it's a technology aid for transportation. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay basically integrates your phone into the center console of your vehicle, including your GPS, including your Bluetooth communication. So you can take a call, send calls, maybe respond to a message while basically have a hand control that says, uh, tell me where you want to go. Little say, you know, go to the GPS and type, press the little button that has the microphone on it, tell it where you want to go, and it should take you there. All of these things are technology aids, which tie into actual physical safety aids. But what happens with all of this is that you get safer driving with the adaptive aids. What does that mean? That means less car accidents, which means less brain injuries. Yeah, if you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know I'm all about prevention. So let's think about the innovation about these adaptive aids. Again, some of these things are very simple. A simple pair of glasses might be a very simple and needed adaptive aid for someone. We see on this uh, graphic to the right of the screen where someone has a little adapter where they're holding a fork. Maybe they have lost their grip strength and it's kind of binding to the hand writ large, but it also binds to the arm. And so, what might this be doing for that person? Well, it's a simple solution, but with that, that might mean the difference between them using the fork themselves or using someone else to use the fork for them. Again, we talk about quality of life and independence. That's an easy, simple, and relatively low cost solution for someone who wants to use a fork by themselves. I'm pretty sure this comes in spoon and knife versions as well. Again, for someone who doesn't have the grip strength, maybe that's a brain injury thing. And so we should think about these kind of things. But then there's also more advanced solutions as well. For example, these glasses, which I pulled off va.gov's website. These glasses have technology integrated into them on specifically the right side, but on the left side, it's a normal pair of glasses. It's just adding the technology into it. And we're seeing a lot come about with robotics and AI. Think about what the future can hold when we are able to make robotic prosthetic limbs more commonplace instead of highly expensive, highly temperamental. Same thing with AI. What if AI can automatically manage someone's who has a brain injury? What if AI could manage that calendar for them just by speaking into it? Or, maybe handing it to, having the phone out and present, it hears, conversation about the next doctor's appointment and automatically puts it into the calendar. AI has so much potential in this field. But what we see, according to this source here, is we see increased overall compliance with doctor prescribed regimen. Now, why is that important? Well, you're obviously increasing someone's level of independence and is also benefiting their quality of life, which leads to, more compliance with physician, guidance, you might say, but it leads to better outcomes. It leads to something, a better end state for the person. We all want to be independent. We all want to have that high quality of life and high level of independence. And sometimes having a tool in the metaphorical or literal, in this case, adaptive aid toolbox is useful to create someone from, instead of being bedbound, now they're wheelchair bound. Maybe they're wheelchair bound. Maybe they can drive a vehicle, or maybe they can be driven in a vehicle. And then maybe they get some more technology to where, yes, maybe there can be more independence. And that's what we want to see as brain injury case managers. We want to see these things. And so, what does this all lead me to conclude? Well, again, adaptive aids, they increase quality of life, they increase the safety as well. These things can range from simple to complex, but they all are for the survivor. Now, they might benefit the caregiver as well. But again, think about the survivor of the brain injury and think about how their life has improved and how their independence has grown due to this. And as a case manager, or maybe someone who knows someone with a brain injury, someone with a brain injury, or someone who works with someone with a brain injury, or maybe a family member or a caregiver with someone as a brain, with a brain injury, we need to know about these kind of adaptive aids. Again, just baseline knowledge. We're not asking to know how to take apart a motorized wheelchair, but we need to know about these things. We need to be able to learn about these things. We also need to prepare for these things. Uh, because a pair of glasses, a proper fitting wheelchair, or maybe a set of hearing aids could make a world of difference in the life of someone with a brain injury, especially if they work. But with that being said, I think I'll end it here. Here are my references. They'll be in the description below. I hope everyone has a absolutely wonderful day, and we'd appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Maybe leave a comment down below. Maybe there's an adaptive aid I missed, or maybe there's one that you'd like to elaborate on, or maybe there's a topic you want us to cover. We'd love to hear your feedback in that form, as well as a like to this video. But with that being said, I hope everyone has a wonderful day. And don't forget, protect your brains and prevent brain injury.